Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem, a postmortem of my Blitz game number 530. I had the black pieces. My opponent kicked off with e4. Here we can look at the opening book. And I replied e6, the French defense. So he goes d4, the main move. I go d5. And now he goes e5, the advanced variation. I think it's actually a little better to play with these knight moves. I'm always happy. Knight d2 or knight c3, the Tarrasch or the kind of classical or 1 hour variations. I'm always happy to see this advanced variation because it gives black a very simple plan. And even the chess engine thinks that black can pretty much equalize. You just, white has set up a solid formation in the center, but it's not flexible at all. It's fixed on these squares, and so it's a fixed target, and you can just kind of train your sights on those targets and pile up on it. So I play c5, my opponent plays c3, the main move. I go knight c6, just adding more pressure. My opponent goes knight f3. These are all very logical moves and almost forced because he's got to continue to shore up that center. And now I go queen b6. That's one of the top two moves here. Apparently bishop d7 is also quite a decent move here, but I'm more familiar with this line. I play queen b6, also keeping with this logical theme of just undermining the center. And now my opponent makes a mistake and plays b3. He can continue with bishop to e2. That's the main move here. And the chess engine for a while was recommending a3. I'm not entirely sure what that's about. Yeah, maybe after it thinks a little longer it won't like that move so much. Anyway, bishop e2, a logical developing move, preparing to castle and get out of the center. And this bishop can come to e3 if necessary to shore up the center. So white's not losing a pawn right away. But like I said, it gives black easy play. After b3, this is a mistake. We're out of the opening book. And I can actually win a pawn here. I didn't spot it. But what this b3 move does is it weakens the c3 square. And so if you take here, and then if he takes back, the engine is not even recommending taking it back, but just turning it into a pawn sack. But if he takes back, I just want to show the idea. You have bishop to b4 check, and taking advantage of that, not that arrow, taking advantage of that weakness on c3. It's no longer supported, so knight c3 to block the check is not possible. He has to block with the bishop or some other piece on d2, and now you can actually grab the pawn here. And if he trades, trying to gain a tempo on the knight and win it back, when you take back with the queen, the knight is defended at the moment, but the queen takes back with check. So he's got to do something about that. And after, say, knight bd2, you just stay a pawn up. So this move b3 my opponent played, that really just loses a pawn here with correct play from black. I didn't spot this idea until later. I just continue with my development, knight g7. It was bishop e3, holding on to the center. And I took here. And then went knight f5, putting more pressure on the center. So now I've got 3 pieces trained on that square. He's got 3 pieces defending it, so far so good. But he has to be careful. He can't place any piece on the d file, or he starts to lose control over the d4 square. So he goes bishop e2, preparing to castle. And now I notice this bishop b4 check. And that really is the key move to take advantage of white's play with this early b3. It's just not a good way to play. He goes king f1, which, considering the alternatives, is one of the better moves here. It looked funny at the time, but if he brings his knight to d2 to block, then I'm just winning a pawn. So king f1 holds on to his material, and now I castle. He plays a3, kicking the bishop. I drop back to e7. He plays b4. So now I have a moment, and I should have really paused here to think about it. I mean, there's no forcing move for my opponent here. My opponent has not made a forcing move, meaning I have some freedom to choose my move. And f6 is a very typical kind of way of increasing the pressure on the center and opening things up. And it's particularly effective here. Notice how high that's scoring on the chess engine evaluation. It's especially effective here because my opponent's king is still in somewhat of an awkward situation. So if I can open up more lines towards the king, this will often lead to an open f-file with the pawn here. Maybe I'll trade it off against the pawn on e5 and get some pressure on the f-file. Anyway, just opening up more lines is the idea, and that should have been played right away. Instead, I continue developing with bishop d7. I play it eventually, but I give my opponent a couple of moves here, g3, rook a c8, just routine developing moves. They're not bad, but they're just not the best moves in this situation. And now I finally, I decided to take the bishop out here. And queen d8. Gosh, I still haven't played f6. Eventually I play f6, queen b3. And by the time I get around to playing f6, you see the advantage. I still have an advantage, but the advantage has diminished quite a bit. All of these moves have allowed White to organize his defenses somewhat. He's got his king off the back rank, so now his rook is free to join into the game, and it's relatively safe over there. So I've given up. I had a bigger advantage in the opening, and I've given it up. Anyway, but I still have some edge here, some pull in the position. He takes on f6. I take back with the bishop, and he goes knight bd2, getting his last piece developed, his last minor piece. I try to reroute my knight to e7. I'm going to maybe go up to this f5 square and put some more pressure on these center pawns. This is a weakness. The pawn on e3 is a weakness in Black's camp. Of course, I have to be careful about my own pawn on e6. We've actually gotten into a symmetric pawn structure, so my advantage isn't so great. It may be difficult to win from this point on, but I just have a slight pull with a little better placement of my pieces, a little more activity. Okay, so I go rook h to... No, he goes rook h to c1. So he brings his rook in. I bring my knight to f5, and he decides to trade on c8. So I took back with the bishop. I was thinking I wanted the queen over here on the dark squares and defending the center. I don't know if that's a good decision. Let's check. Yeah, queen takes c8 maybe is a little better, because the queen on the open file, well, it's not going to get hit right away. The rook can't immediately come to c1 because it's not defended. So, yeah. Anyway, but bishop takes c8 is not bad. So let's check this out. He played rook to c1 now, so he gets the c file. Bring my bishop back to d7. I wanted to lift my queen up and then bring the rook over here. He goes king to f2. I guess he's lending a little more support to this e3 pawn here, although it looks very funny to put the king directly opposite the rook. Kind of a strange move, and there's probably some interesting possibilities for me, starting with bishop g5. Yeah, okay. So I didn't exploit this opportunity either. Bishop g5 would be an interesting move here to increase the pressure on the e3 pawn, and if he trades, then we're opening up this f-file towards his king, so that would be pretty good for me. So bishop g5 looks like a strong move there. Instead, I pushed on with a6. I was just preparing to blockade over here on the queen side. He goes a4, cancel that. He went a4, right. I went b5. So we get some trades here, and things are all kind of blocked up on the queen side now. He goes rook to c5, though, going after these pawns here. And I go knight to d6. So I'm looking at... cancel that. Oh, I went queen to b8 here. I skipped a line when I was looking at the wrong square. Yeah, routing this knight over here to c4 looks like a good idea. I should probably be thinking about that. Let's see, queen to b8. I'm defending this pawn and preparing to bring a rook to the c-file, perhaps. He drops his king back to e1. I'm not sure about that move. Rook over to c8. Rook takes, queen takes, and bishop to d1. So he's just kind of rearranging his forces here. It looks to me like this is an opportunity for me to invade. So I guess, yeah, my advantage here, material is still even, but my more active pieces are giving me an advantage still. So he's unpinning his bishop with king e2. And now I start this maneuver with knight to d6, getting it to a good position over here. He goes knight to e5. He's got a good spot for his knight. And now, let's see, I should just take that knight off. I retreated my bishop. Let's see, what could he have played? It looked like it's almost equal with queen c2. Yeah, queen c2 would force a queen trade, or force my queen to a square over here on the a file where it's not doing much. Okay, so yeah, queen c2 would be a way for black to equalize here. Okay, So he comes in with knight e5, and now I should trade. This is another missed chance for me. Let's see if I take here. And then I come in with my knight to c4, which is what I want to do anyway. I thought he would just take this, and I wasn't sure this was so great. I mean, the knight on c4 is hitting these weak pawns over here, which the trade created, so that's the idea here. But if he removes the knight, let's see, I can take back with the b pawn. That's funny. I would have probably taken with the d pawn, which is only equal. So let's look at why this is better. Take with the b pawn. I guess, well, I'll get a passed pawn in either case. The queen moves to a2. And then c3. I guess since I took with the b pawn, I don't have a weakness here on b5 that I have to defend, and it opens up that square for my bishop to come in and check his king. So that's pretty interesting. So that's why in this position it's better to take with the b pawn and then push it forward and open up some squares for my bishop. Interesting. Whereas if I take with the d pawn, then it is just an even position. Okay. Anyway, I wasn't sure about taking. Didn't see that idea, and so I just retreated my bishop to e8. I don't want to give that piece up. I don't even want to trade it. I want to keep the bishop pair if I can. He goes h4. I go knight to c4. So I finally get my knight on this square, and he takes, and cancel that. Oh, he took with the other knight. And I took back with the d pawn, and here looks like either one is good, although maybe the b pawn once again is slightly better, opening up that square for my bishop. But I wanted to blockade his b pawn, so it's a little bit safer to take this way, and I have this advanced pawn coming through. Okay, so he drops his queen back to c2, and at this point I decide to trade, but I've gotten a significant edge here in the endgame with the passed pawn. So I should go on to win from this point. I have the bishop pair in the endgame, and I have a protected passer. But there are some wrinkles along the way. I think he had a few chances to hold the draw. But let's go forward a few moves here. I'm playing well. I'm targeting his weak pawns. That's the other problem with White's position, is he has a number of pawn weaknesses, and he can't really defend all of them. The knight's just a little bit too slow to cover both sides of the board, so it was covering the pawn over here on g6, but it couldn't cover this pawn over here on b4, g3 and b4. Okay, so king f7, I start bringing my king into the game. He brings his kingside pawns forward, but I think the action is over here on the queen side, so I'm trying to bring my king in to this side, try to activate my bishop. Okay, and at this point I decided I could trade off that knight and win another pawn, and I should just have a winning endgame. And this is, in fact, if we look at the evaluation, completely winning. So somehow, though, let's go forward again. I'm doing logical moves here, but at some point I make a mistake right here. Okay, so there's one move here that keeps a huge advantage, and the move I play pretty much throws it away. There's other moves that keep a small advantage, but okay, bishop to f7, defending the pawn. Yeah, maybe I just didn't notice this pawn was under attack. I was moving too quickly here. I just need to defend this pawn. So that's what my big mistake was here. That's kind of funny, just leaving that pawn undefended. So I come up and attack his pawn, but he takes my pawn and defends his pawn at the same time. Let's see, I still have this bishop f7 check idea, but I pushed on with b2, dragging his king away. He went king to b4. Okay, holding on to his pawn. So I play bishop f7. Eventually, I think he's going to have to move his king away and take this pawn. But this, you can see the evaluation is only -1, which sometimes in an endgame means that it's a draw. You know, if the evaluation stays steady at -1 and it doesn't and it doesn't start climbing or dropping, depending upon your point of view, then that means the chess engine can't find a way to queen a pawn. It just means you stay a pawn up and you don't make any progress. So it's possible that black has white has a draw here with good play. So, but he needs to play king c3 here. It's kind of what I was expecting. King c3, attacking my pawn. I take his pawn. And then he doesn't take my pawn right away. He plays bishop to c2. Okay, it's kind of a narrow path that that white is negotiating here to obtain a draw. I would go here, trying to queen this pawn, and that would just force him to take, and that's an immediate draw. Okay, if I don't do that, the engine is recommending a move like bishop to g6. Okay, putting pressure on this guy. Bishop to d3. Just kind of sitting here. Yeah, it's kind of a standoff. He's attacking this pawn, but if he takes it, my king can come in. So he's just going to sit here, and the bishop prevents my pawn from going forward. His king prevents my king from getting in, and yeah, I think that maybe that's a situation where there's no progress. So right here, you need to find this idea, king c3, and then just sit on the position and move this bishop along this diagonal, and white can draw that. Okay, so he played bishop d3. I think this is the final straw, and I managed to win from here. Bishop to a2. Yeah, I'm going to queen this pawn or win a piece. So let's just play through the rest of this. I've got a piece and a pawn up, and it's a fairly straightforward win from here. So interesting game, a lot of back and forth. Yeah, my opponent resigned at this point. There's a mate in 8 according to the chess engine, but I wouldn't have too much trouble winning this one. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon.